Let's get to Luka, shall we? Look, the greatest way in which you can shut up any trash talk, and that's all it was, is trash talk, is what Luka did. A step back three, down one as time expires. Then there's the video of Luka bottle flipping during the timeout before he hits the game-winning jump shot. Oh, and he'd shot a couple air balls. Matter of fact, in a couple previous possessions, in overtime, he'd shot an air ball on a step-back three. I thought he had a bad ankle. I thought he didn't have Porzingis, and it didn't matter. There are a group of people out there who believe that Larry Bird is not in the conversation of the top 5 all-time greats in the modern era. If you like Luka Doncic, if you believe that Luka Doncic is not only an MVP candidate this year, he's not going to win it, but an MVP candidate this year, and worthy of the conversation considering the level of athleticism in the NBA and his supposed lack of that speed, burst athleticism, if you think he can be really effective, then you're essentially saying, yeah, hey, Larry Bird, it could have been really effective too. Because Larry Bird was 3 inches taller, a better rebounder. Granted, played a bit of a different position, but I'm sure that would have evolved now. And had every bit of the skill as a shooter and as a passer, and even more skill in the post. So the first thing is that if you're admitting Luka can play, you're admitting that Larry Bird could play. Now, we've got that out of the way, right? To the, there's analysts there's draft guys that have missed. I wasn't one of them. I did not predict he would be an MVP candidate, but I wasn't one of those guys that had out loud questions about his draftability because of his athleticism. I was cautious because just like college football and college basketball is a different game than the NFL and the NBA, the same is true for European hoops. At 19 years old, 18 years old, 17 years old, he was tremendous in FIBA hoops. But there's lots of guys who have been stars at that level who have struggled to transition to this level. Even though it's a higher level, it's just a different game than the college game, for example. And what I would say to people who make fun of some of my brethren who got it wrong is this: inexact science. We should have been able to see, based upon his success in Europe at the very highest level, and how he played and how he used his body and how he used his strength and how good his feel was and how good his shot was, all of those things, but completely understandable. It happens. Even science is an inexact science. In science, a scientific fact is like true 97% of the time. They don't go to 100 because that wouldn't be science. They know that there are outliers, even if the truth is within those 97 percentile. So if science is 97% fact means fact, what do you think an inexact science like who you draft and how you draft is an inexact science? Okay. But lastly, and maybe most importantly, we're suffering from FTCIS. F, first, T, two, C, call, I, it, S, syndrome. We want to be the first to call it. Told you. Luka's a superstar. Top 5 in the NBA. He's got the clutch gene. He's a finisher. He's awesome. I told you he was Bird and Nash combined. That's what I told you was. Like, I didn't know there was a bonus for being the first to watch a game on your satellite and decide that he was an all-time great. Right? The all-time greats do this for a long time. And they have a tendency to get better as time goes on. They also continue to lift up their team as time goes on. If you watch The Last Dance, Michael Jordan, who came out of as good a college program as there has ever been, was as well coached in college as you could ever find, And at 21 years old, similar to Luka, he came to the league. He averaged 28 a game. He had 63 in the playoffs. But look how long it took for him to get his franchise with a lot of help from Jerry Krause, who's maligned in the video. They had to go through multiple coaches, and finally they figured it out, and he became the winningest modern-day NBA superstar and widely considered the greatest of all time. Like, this is not a turn on the light switch and suddenly you're competing for championships sort of sport. That's not the way it works. And I also need to remind you, as great as it was, and it was great, it was a fantastic game. The shot making at both ends was amazing. I'll also point out that while some teams like the Lakers are defending better, we also saw Donovan Mitchell go off offensive. We've seen some obscene offensive numbers, and a good amount of it is the style of play, the pace of play, and the officiating of play, as much as how good the actual play is. But instead of suffering from FTCIS, where you want to be the first to call it, can't we just appreciate the amazing aspects of the moment when he hit the game-winning shot? Right? You had his teammate Kristaps Porzingis, who didn't play. They had come from over 20 down just to come back, and they should have won the game in regulation if not for completely butchering a lead late in the game. They get to overtime, once again take a lead, once again hit jump shots, but, they could not. It felt like whoever had the ball last would get a stop, and then the Clippers even played it right, where they fouled with 3.7 seconds to go, and you're like, man, that's not going to be enough time to go into a bunch of moves and whatever. It's going to be kind of catch and shoot city. And, just like he was relaxed on the bench as he's bottle flipping, just like he doesn't seem rushed on the floor even when he's being pressured, Luka caught the ball and seemingly took his time, got into his space, got into his step back, and made a jump shot. And this, of course, coming off of some sort of mild controversy where we're supposed to freak out because Montrezl Harrell called him a name. All of that considered, like, just appreciating that on a Sunday afternoon, I'm watching a game and I jump up and say, "Oh my God, that was amazing!" Just not an all-time great make just yet. Again, that doesn't mean he won't be an all-time great. That doesn't mean we're not watching the beginning of something really special in Dallas, and that there are plenty of people like Vlade Divac who got fired because they didn't draft Luka. All of this stuff is all okay. It's okay, but let's not just be that prisoner of the moment that worries so much about who called it. I want credit because I called it first. We did it with Dame like a week ago. Oh, Damian Lillard. He's one of the top 2 or 3 guards in the league. Like, all right, like, I like Damian Lillard. I love his game. I love his attitude. I love that he's kind of changing how we view these long-range shots and all that stuff. He has yet to prove that he's better than Steph Curry when they play against each other. It's not really all that close. And the inability to, one, sustain what he was doing, and 2, affect the game positively when he's not doing what he was doing last week, kind of speaks to the fact that he's a very, very good player. But some of that was against backups. Some of that was against fatigued teams. And some of that is just running a heater. That's not necessarily who he always is or always can be. In the bubble, things are a little bit different. In the playoffs, things are a little bit different. When you have another teammate who commands 15 to 20 shots a game out, you're going to have more touches, more shots, more points. We've seen that with Donovan Mitchell, and we saw it last night with Luka. All of these things are accurate. But what has a tendency to get us to be inaccurate is our desire to call things first instead of just letting them happen and then reacting to the greatness.